Today I'm going to show you a 24 gigahertz mmWave detector that I found rather inexpensively on Amazon through a social media post. So let's get started. Now this is the actual sensor, and I've already unboxed it, so you don't have to go through all that. Look at me opening a box, but it's the Linptech Presence Sensor ES1 Smart Motion Sensor with 24 gig mmWave radar, human body exists sensor detector, requires all that stuff. Anyway, that's what it is. Here's the box. Nothing super exciting about a box. But it does come with this cable, which is the USB-C power cable that you'll use with it. And here's the actual sensor. This is the Linptech sensor. I think there's some other versions of this. Things to keep in mind is that this right here is, does it have a number on it? Let me see if I can figure this out here. The ES1ZZ, what else do we have on here? Zigbee, communication mode is Zigbee, and I thought I had a chipset or something on here, but it doesn't. Anyway, that's the model number and everything in case you're interested in which one this actually is. It does make a difference to the Tuya stuff. And then, of course, here's the USB-C port on here. And there's a button somewhere, I think. Oh, you just push the whole thing down, I believe. Anyway, this is the mount for it. And this mount is magnetic. So even on the back of this, there's a magnet in here. So if you had something magnetic, you could stick it to that. But it also allows you to take this pad right here and stick it on whatever you want. And then just stick this on here. It does rotate freely. And the other thing is the power cord is here. So if you put it on a wall or something, you're going to have to stick it, I don't know, stick it like that on the wall, maybe something like this. And then the power cord is available. But if you tilt it down at all from the wall to angle it down, that power cord is going to be in the way. So you almost have to either do it from the side, so the power cord's on the side, or from the top. I have it sitting on a desk when it's in play, and the power cord actually sits on top, and the power cord comes out here, and that's sometimes a problem because then it'll pull this backwards or it'll make it spin or whatever because the power cord's kind of dragging it down. So you got to make sure the power cord doesn't have any tension on it when you plug it in, or it's just going to move this because it moves so freely on the mount. Anyway, this is the sensor, and these sensors are designed to be at chest height, or they're designed to be a little bit above. They say maximum is 2 meters, and then of course you would take this and you would angle it down so that it is pointed down at the chest, someone's chest. And the reason you do that is, yeah, if you open that too far, you can see here it actually, you have a limit to how far that could open. If you aim it down at their chest, because it's going to pick up micro motions and breathing and allow it to detect that someone is still in the room. Also has a light sensor in here, so it can detect light levels, and I do have an automation I use that allows me to do the light levels on it. So that's the sensor itself, and of course the box. Oh, it does come with a little manual, and it does talk about in this manual connecting the Smart Life app. I'm not going to do anything with that. I'm not using the Smart Life app. I'm going to plug this directly into Home Assistant, and I'll show you that in a moment. It does talk about the install wiring and the installation steps in here. It tells you where to put it and how high it should be and all of that other stuff, so it can read the motions and the micro motions and all of that. So little manual that comes with it. All right, so let's get into talking about how we make this work in Home Assistant. All right, so that's what the sensor looks like. That's what comes in the box. Keep in mind that these are not your standard motion sensors. There's some requirements that you need to keep in mind. One is they are radar based, and that means that they can see through walls in some cases and see through obstacles. So I have a green screen behind me right now, and that sensor has no problem going through the green screen to detect that I'm in the room. If you have a thin wall or a glassed door or something and you aim it out towards that, it's very likely that it will see motion on the opposite side of that wall. And also, as I mentioned, there's the manual, and it talks about in the manual, it sees things such as fluttering curtains, moving metal, green plants, clothes, running air conditioning, other stuff like that. It will pick up that as motion and create false alerts. So that's one of the drawbacks to a sensor like this is it sees more, it's more sensitive, but it picks up more and can cause more false alerts than maybe a regular motion sensor. So you have to use it in places where it makes sense. In the room I've got it in here in the studio, I don't have a lot of extra motion. So when I walk into this room, it's dark. There are no windows in the studio. I have a little lamp that comes on only if I don't have the overhead lights on. So it uses an automation, and I'll show you that later on. Okay, so that's one thing. What else I want to talk about with this? PIR sensors are designed to detect micromotion in sleeping, in sitting, and stuff like that. So it knows there's somebody in the room even when there's minute motion. So you have to place it appropriately, like I mentioned in the unboxing. It needs to be at a maximum of 2 meters, which is about 6 feet, I think. And it needs to be aimed at something that's moving in this case, like a person's chest or their breathing. It will pick up the breathing and it will detect that someone's in the room. So those are some things to think about. Now let's talk about getting it in the Home Assistant. Now this is a Zigbee device, and it does not come out of the box capable of being used in Zigbee to MQTT. And let me talk about that. I'm using Zigbee to MQTT, the add-on here in Home Assistant. The reason I use Zigbee to MQTT is because it is, there are a number of community developers that will take devices that are either bleeding edge or just non-standard Zigbee stuff, which Zigbee has no standards almost. And they will be able to apply the engineering knowledge or their knowledge to be able to get what they call converters or devices into Zigbee to MQTT. And so in order to make this work, we actually need to create a converter file, and that allows us to make this work. So if you look at the studio presence sensor, now it's offline because I have it unplugged, because I was showing it to you. See, promise, it's sitting right here, not plugged in anything. But it is now a supported device because I added a converter. It's not hard to add the converter. If you're using Zigbee to MQTT, then all you have to do is put a file in the appropriate directory, and I'll show you that here in a second. If you're using something like ZHA with Home Assistant, I don't really know if this works natively out of ZHA. It probably doesn't. ZHA is more standards compliant, and it takes longer for things to get added to ZHA than in Zigbee to MQTT. So if you're doing if you're doing Zigbee stuff, I always recommend using this one if you're going to be doing non-standard or new devices, because they'll show up here first before they show up in other controllers. Okay, so with that being said, let me talk about now how we get this to work. Before I do that, let me just talk about where I'm going to get this code from. If you look at the Zigbee to MQTT GitHub page, there's a lot of issues and a lot of requests for new devices to be added and whatnot. In this case, that's what's going on here. Is there's a whole discussion here from the community, and this was what makes Z2M nice, is that someone is on here reverse engineering these things, and it allows you to use the knowledge of the community to actually add these converters, and that's what this is. The code for this is in here, and it's also on my blog post. So if you want to look at my blog post, you can use the code that I did in order to make this work. Now, when you install Zigbee to MQTT, you'll have a directory called Zigbee to MQTT. So I'll go to my file editor, and I've already done this. So I'm just going to show you how it actually works. If I go to the Zigbee, and can I make this bigger for you? Yeah. If I go to the Z2M, the Zigbee to MQTT directory, where is it at? Right here. You'll see a directory here, and it's got a number of files in it. Now, the important piece to remember here is that the device or the file name you create is going to have to match the device model that's in the file, so it knows to pick it up. And I've done that here. That's why you see this file called ts0225.js. That's the model number that I specified in the file. I don't know if it's arbitrary. It might be just being arbitrary. I could put Bob's your uncle in here, and then as long as the file name is correct, then it would pick it up. This was an example I found somewhere, and I think I left it even though I didn't change the model properly. And now I just confused everyone. The point is, make sure that this file name .js matches the file or the model number. So you'll create a file, and you can do that here by clicking on New File. And then when you create a new file, you'll take the code either from my blog post or that GitHub page, and you'll post it in here, paste it in here. And it'll show all of this stuff. You can read about how or what all of these things do in that GitHub post if you want to. If you just want to paste and get things working, then you can do that as well. The model is here, which you can barely see on the video because it's so tiny. TS0225, well, that's the name of the file, ts0225.js. It is a JavaScript file. You would paste all of this in here, and then you have to restart Zigbee to MQTT. And once you do that, if you don't get any log or any errors, then you're ready to add the device. Now, this particular device, to add it, all you do is let me go back over here. It's like adding any other Zigbee to MQTT device. You click on Permit Join, and if you have multiple coordinators, you would choose that. Now notice this, Studio Presence, which is this device right here, the new device, actually acts as a hub in Zigbee, which means that you can actually have devices connect to this as something else. So it can be a repeater for your Zigbee network. So that's nice. Anyway, you choose what you want it to join to, and then on this device itself, you actually are going to hold down this button. The actual light sensor thing is a button as well. You hold that down, and then it will join up to this. You'll see some notification, just like any other Zigbee device. If you've ever added anything in Z2M, it's the same thing. Just follow along as it gets added. Once it gets added and does its interrogation and polling, then you will see it go to hopefully online and supported. In fact, let me plug it in here. Get this power cord unwrapped. And I will just go ahead and plug it in so that it will show up as online. Now, I ran this initially on a battery for like a week. Just one of these like little RAV power batteries or whatever. I ran it for a week, and it worked pretty well on the battery. It worked very well on the battery. I wouldn't recommend that you do that for long term because it will kill the battery. Now you see it's online here. So that's good. The picture doesn't quite match because that hasn't been updated in my database here, but you do see it's online. It tells you it's the TZ3218 AWAR H8 USB device. That's important because this actually will determine how the converter is set up. And there are some of these that are similar looking, but they're a slightly different manufacturer ID thing here. And so they won't use the same converter code. It might be close, but it won't be exact. So it's powered up, you can see now. And oh, one other thing I want to point out about these presence sensors is majority of them require constant power because they're sending out a constant radar pulse to determine if there's movement or detect human presence in a room. So they're a little bit more battery intensive or a little bit more power intensive than like your standard 6-year battery life motion detector that you get with an alarm system or something else. I have heard discussions and read some discussions on some low power chips that are being put into some of these now. And so we may see some battery operated presence detectors come out. And if there's already some out there, I apologize. I don't know of them, but most of them have to be powered somehow. And that makes a mounting option a limitation for where you put these. If you're going to do them at desk height for room presence detection or, countertop height, and you got a plug there, those will work that way. So anyway, just keep that in mind. They have to be powered by the battery. All right, so this is online now, and it's ready to go. You can also tell that it's working by going to the Expose This tab here. and you can see these options. You can actually change the motion detection distance and the sensitivity. In my experimentation, I've found that I've had to set both of these to max. I don't mess with fading time. I don't really understand. Well, it says the time after which the device will check again for presence. So every 30 seconds it checks for presence to make sure. You actually can adjust this. And what that means is when it goes from presence to detected to not detected, if you set up an automation to determine or watch for those values, this will be the value where it checks at. So if I come in the room and 30 seconds later I walk out, and then I walk out 30 seconds after that, then the device will say, hey, there's no one in the room. And then it'll do whatever it needs to do. Of course, you get your link quality stuff that you get typically from a Zigbee device. I don't really understand this presence keep time because I'm new in the presence detector world. There's a lot of discussion, I think, about this value specifically and how it works in other areas. And then occupancy tells you it's occupied currently. Illuminance is 486 LX lux. So let me turn off my studio lights. Hold on one second here and see. Let's watch that number. See how quickly that reacts? It's now 189 lux. So I've turned it back on. It'll go back up to 400, 500, whatever the lux value is. And if I shadow it with my hand, then the value should drop a little bit as well. There it goes. I can make it maybe completely dark. Let's see. 59 lux. So you can use this in your automations, and I actually do that. Your target distance is how far it has detected motion. And I've got it pointed at my screen, so that's probably not a good indicator. If I point it away from myself over at the wall, currently, let's see if it even picks it up. Target distance is 194. As you play with this, and you want to know, well, what is my motion detection distance going to be set for? You can actually sit in front of this thing or walk around in front of it out to the range you want it to pick up somebody or a human detection. And you can actually then set this value to either slightly below that or equal to that. And then you'll know that if somebody walks within the target distance that it's measuring here, that you'll be able to pick it up by setting this to the proper value. The other thing to consider too is where it's sitting. I'm not sure why it's doing this, but it shows me 71 centimeters. And because I'm dumb, let me see what that means in feet. 2 feet. That's the distance it looks like from the wall to this device. So it might be picking up activity outside on the other side of the wall, or I don't know what it's doing actually. Anyway, the point is you can use this device or this distance as you experiment with where you're in the room at to determine how far to set that. And then of course, there's all these other things up here. A lot of them don't really do a lot. It can tell you the current state, which you're basically getting from this exposes as well. Okay, so this is here now. How does it get into Home Assistant as an entity? Well, it's if you're using Zigbee to MQTT and you have Discovery enabled in Home Assistant, which is done by default now, it should automatically create packets in Home Assistant. If you use something like MQTT Explorer, you can actually see what it's doing here. Under Zigbee to MQTT, you can look at the presence and you can see its status and what it's doing. And look, here's the illuminance, and then all of these other things that are in this particular device. So it's helpful to look at that. And then the Home Assistant packet will send out discovery packets like this. Oops, where'd that go? It'll send out a discovery packet, and this discovery packet will then configure those entities in Home Assistant. So it's very simple. If you're running something like Zigbee to MQTT or Zigbee or Z-Wave JS UI, those will automatically create devices in Home Assistant once they're discovered or added to these particular controllers. All right, so what else do I want to say about this particular device? Let's talk about the automation real quick. The automation that I use in Home Assistant for this. So if I go over to automations, I'll show you that momentarily. The automation code is also on my blog post for this. Let's look for Studio. guest. So it's confusing. This used to be in the guest bedroom, this lamp that I'm using. So I have it called guest lamp, but it's really in the studio. And then I have studio presence, whatever. So this particular automation will do this particular thing. When presence is detected, actually what I do here is I have two different triggers. When presence motion is, or when studio presence motion changes to detected. So when the sensor picks up detected or detects a human, and also when it is cleared. And I have the ID set in here. So that the trigger ID is presence detected, presence cleared. And then what happens down here under the action section is I have two different options. Option is when triggered by presence detected, as long as the illumination is below 150 lux, then I want to turn on that guest lamp. If it's not below 150, so again, if I have these overhead lights on and I come into the room, I don't necessarily need to have the guest lamp on. It's bright enough as it is. But if it's dark in here and I walk in, I want that light to come on. So this uses both the detection of that sensor and the light level detection, the lux detection in that sensor in one device to be able to do this automation. Now, when the presence clears, then of course I want to turn off the guest lamp, and that happens after that 30 seconds. And if I walk out of the room, there should be no human presence detected, and then it does that. And if you're interested in the YAML version of this, here it is. I have this YAML version on my blog post as well, which of course I'll link down below. And this will give you an idea of what it does here. Okay, well, that's it. Final thoughts on this particular device. I've had it in service for a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks now. It was fairly inexpensive on Amazon. In fact, right now on Amazon, it is $35.99 US dollars. There is a $5 coupon, no, a 20% coupon, which brings it down to whatever that 20% of that is. So it's basically on sale right now. So you can get these things on Amazon. And I don't know why I'm not showing you. It's $35.99 on Amazon. Again, you can check that coupon and get it cheaper than that if you want. I've seen presence sensors higher than that. Maybe there's some a little bit lower than that. But this one seems to work very well. It's solid. It acts as a Zigbee hub, or it's supposed to. I looked at my Zigbee mapping and it actually shows something connected to it. So it must be hubbing. It must be repeating. It is fast, so I guess some of that goes for how my network is set up too. But as soon as it detects presence, boom, the lights come on. And then within 30 seconds after leaving the room, boom, the lights go off. So it's triggering quickly. It also doesn't seem to do hardly any, if at all, false alerts. I never see the lights come on or off when no one's in the room. But no one's in the room, so does it make a sound? But All right, so anyway, I know if the light's on because I have other notifications and things that happen. So I don't see any false alerts on it. And it works well for what it is. The only thing I would say, again, is about the mounting piece of it. You know, you got to kind of mess with this mount a little bit. After doing and playing with this, I realized I was kind of messing around with this. And I have the wire up like this, and it pulls back on this mount and makes it kind of go backwards. Well, I had a duh moment. I said, well, what if I just lay this thing down where the wire is kind of sitting on the desk like that at the bottom, and then it won't pull it backwards. I don't know. This thing rotates 360 degrees. You can put it on here any way you want. And wherever this power cord needs to go, well, you just adjust it accordingly. So maybe the mount is not as bad as I thought it was. So you just have to make it fit and point to where you're going to make it work at. Let me see what else. There was another picture I wanted to show you here. I don't know if it's on this or not. If it talks about the radius of this, it's on the manual. The little booklet thingy. Where's it at? You probably can or cannot see this, but also I can't show it to you very well. There's in here. There is a little diagram, which will not focus. It looks like 85 degrees side to side, so pretty much a full 180 degrees from side to side. So you're going to get coverage from all the way around the front of the sensor. So if you want to put it somewhere to get the room without false positives, don't aim it towards doors where people might walk by. Put it towards the other direction, away from the door. So just keep in mind where you want to mount that. Okay, we're getting long-winded, as I always do on my videos. That's about it. It's a great sensor for the price. It works well. I haven't had any issues with it. The only caveat right now is it's not completely supported in Zigbee to MQTT yet, but it will be because work has been done, as you see in that GitHub. And by the time you watch this video, it might just be picked up automatically. I would try adding it first if you have the latest version of Z2M and see if it just picks it up out of the box. If not, then add that converter file and then you should be in business. All right, let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below. Also on Discord, I'm available. Sometimes I get to Discord before I get to the YouTube comments just because that's the way it works. So if I don't respond to you in the comments, hit me up on Discord. With that, thanks for watching. Thanks to those who are supporting me in their various ways, and for subscribers to the channel. If you're not a subscriber, just push the button. It's real quick. And we'll see you on the next one.